Welcome back, everyone. We're diving into some drama today, unfolding at Daystar Television Network, no less. Yeah, that broadcasting giant, in the Christian community. It's all about the late founder, Marcus Lamb, and, well, his plans for who would take over, his succession plan. We're talking leaked documents, people saying different things, contradicting each other, and there's even an audio recording that, well, let's just say it's raising some eyebrows, to put it mildly.
It's true. This deep dive, well, it takes us into um, a world, I guess you could say, where faith and family, they kind of collide with power and legacy. What makes it so interesting is that succession planning, it's often really complex, especially for, well, a family-run organization as big as Daystar.
Right. Okay. So let's break this down. Start with the beginning. So in 2014, after another pastor died in a plane crash, Marcus, understandably shaken, wrote a letter, outlining his wishes for Daystar, what he wanted to happen. He named his oldest son, Jonathan, as the one to take over. And this letter, it wasn't just a quick note. I mean, this thing was detailed. It covered like board appointments, finances, even how family members should be involved. Pretty much everything.
Yeah, and it's really interesting how this letter, written with, well, I guess the thought of his own mortality, it tries to make sure the ministry continues, but also that the family stays unified. But, looking back, it also shows these seeds of potential conflict. Daystar is a big network, lots of family members in key positions. So just one letter, no matter how detailed it is, well, it might not be enough to handle all the complexities, the relationships and ambitions.
And that's where things get interesting. So fast forward to 2021, just a few months before Marcus died, he sends an email. Sent it to his children, their spouses, and the CFO of the network. And this email, well, it kind of goes against what he said in the 2014 letter. This time he says his wife, Joni Lamb, should take over first, and then Jonathan would take over after her.
Right, yeah. Now, this change to the plan, it's really important. Legally, it makes things, ambiguous. Which document matters more? But beyond the legal stuff, it makes you wonder about the family. Jonathan himself said this change was because he had raised concerns about this guy, they call him Pete, who, well, sources say he was pretty close to the network.
So we have a new leader, but there are also hints of like some serious accusations. What's really fascinating is that the email doesn't say exactly what Jonathan's concerns about this Pete guy were. So it leaves a lot open to, speculation. Was there some kind of misconduct, financial problems? Was Jonathan trying to protect his daughter, who some say was abused by Pete? And the email just leaves us with more questions than answers, really.
Absolutely, and this brings up a big question. Was Joni taking over a move to keep things quiet? Maybe to avoid a scandal and protect a network?
Yeah.
Or was Marcus, he was nearing the end of his life. Maybe he was just rethinking things. That ambiguity, well, it just adds another layer to this whole drama.
Yeah. And then just when you think it can't get more complicated, we have to consider Denise Boggs. She's a close family friend. And she claims that just 2 days before he passed away, Marcus called her from the hospital, asked her to write down his final wishes for who should lead Daystar. And get this, he specifically names Jonathan, his sisters, and their spouses to be in charge.
Now, this is where it gets really interesting. Denise claims Marcus was very specific. He even had her repeat the names to make sure she got it right. But what's even more striking is who he didn't mention. Joshua Brown. He's Rachel Lamb Brown's husband and Daystar's director of operations. That he wasn't mentioned, well, that's really important, especially with all the allegations around Jonathan's daughter.
Exactly. It's like maybe Marcus, in his final moments was trying to send a message, trying to protect his granddaughter and expose what he thought was going on within his own family. Makes you think about what was going on in the family back then. Was there a lack of trust? Was there this urgency to set things right?
Recently, I heard a podcast by Laura Lynn, really encouraging those that knew the truth to come forward. And I was convicted deep in my heart because I know some truth that needs to be brought forward. My name is Denise Boggs. I was a friend of the Lamb family. And I want to tell you what happened just 2 days before Marcus passed. I received a call. And the call was him on the other line. He had one of his girls to dial my number. And he said, Miss Denise, I need you to write some things down for me. I said, okay, Marcus, I'll be glad to. And he said, Joni and I have built Daystar, but I really believe it's time for me to say that we built it so the children could carry it on. And I said, okay. And he said, did you write that down? I said, yes. And then he said, well, first of all, there's our son, Jonathan, and he would be the first one that needs to step in and carry things on. He's the first lamb. And then there's his wife, Susie. She took his name, Susie Lamb, and she'll be beside him to support him. I said, okay. And then he said, and then there's Rachel Lamb Brown, and she will be beside him on the other side, helping him to keep everything going. And I need to make sure now you're writing it down. Yes, Marcus, I'm writing it down. And then he said, then there's Rebecca Lamb Weiss. And she will be like on the other side, like Aaron and her, holding up Jonathan's arms. And her husband, Jonathan Wise, will be alongside her to help her. Are you writing that down? He said. I said, yes, Marcus, I'm writing it down. And so when he finished, I knew he had left someone out, but I did not say anything. And I knew that there was some deep pain because of what had happened in the family. And I knew that that's probably why he did not mention Joshua Brown. But I did not question him on that. This was his time to speak from his heart and not be controlled or manipulated in any way. And I said, okay, I've got it all written down. And he said, okay, thank you. You make sure it gets where it needs to go. I said, okay, I will. And so he hung up the phone, or he had someone else to hang it up. And then I did submit it to different family members. I told Joni about it. I told Rachel and I told Rebecca about what had happened. So they all knew.
It's kind of a sad picture, you know? A father in his last moments trying to fix things to make sure his family is safe and his ministry stays true to its values. But then they didn't listen to his wishes. In fact, just a year after Marcus died, Jonathan was pushed aside and then fired from Daystar. That's totally the opposite of what we hear in the recording.
Right. That makes you wonder what happened during that year. What made them fire Jonathan? Could it be because he was trying to expose what was going on with this Pete guy? Maybe they saw him as a threat, someone who might upset things and make those allegations public?
It gets even more confusing when you think about what might happen next. After Jonathan was fired, he started talking publicly, which made things even worse. This whole thing, him speaking out, it must have had some effect on Daystar. Did the viewers react? What about their finances? Did it affect how many people watched or how much money they got in donations?
Oh, definitely. This controversy, with all the family drama and the possibility of misconduct, it would have caused some waves, for sure. Daystar's image and the trust people have in them, it's really important. A scandal like this could really hurt their reputation and make viewers turn away. And we can't forget about the money. Bad publicity usually means less donations, which is a big deal for a religious network.
It's like a domino effect, right? One thing leads to another, and it affects everyone involved and even the entire organization. And in this case, this organization is really important to a lot of viewers who depend on Daystar for, spiritual guidance.
Exactly. This is bigger than just a family fight or a power struggle in a company. This is about faith and trust. It makes us question the people we see as moral leaders and the groups they represent.
It really makes you wonder, what were the leaders at Daystar thinking? Were they just trying to protect the network's image no matter what? Or were they really trying to handle a tough situation the best way they could?
It's hard to know what they were thinking. But it's clear the choices they made had big consequences. This situation really shows us how complicated people are, even in groups that are supposed to be about faith and doing the right thing.
So where do we go from here? What happens now for Daystar, the Lamb family, and, the most important thing, finding out the truth? What happened to Pete? Are those accusations real?
Those are all really important questions. We need answers. But unfortunately, it's still a mystery. It seems like the full truth, well, we might never know.
Yeah, even though we don't have all the answers, this deep dive has shown us some pretty disturbing things about this whole situation. We saw a simple succession plan turn into a mess of conflicting stories, hidden motives, and maybe even a cover-up. It makes you think about how faith, family, and power all mix together.
And as we move on, it's important to remember that this isn't just one unique situation. This is a small example of bigger problems we see in society. People abusing their power, the fight for justice, and how complicated relationships can be. It reminds us that even in groups that talk about faith and doing good, we have to be careful, ask tough questions, and make sure those in charge are responsible for what they do.
So that's it for this episode, but we hope you keep thinking about these questions, keep asking them, keep searching for answers, and keep talking about these important things. And until next time, stay curious.